Welcome, everybody, to Service and Sacrifice on this, wow, it's Friday the 13th. Can you believe that? Welcome you back here on WTEN Plus. And joining me, as always, Dom Dominguez, ML Baker. Gentlemen, hello.
Hey, hey.
How are we feeling?
Feeling good.
Feeling good on this Friday the 13th?
Yeah, feeling
Not scared?
Good. No, not scared.
No.
Usually it's like October, it feels weird, but
right around Halloween time?
Snow's melting. Sure. It's a great day.
It was summer for a few days. That was good.
So last week, I want to talk about this real quick. We had Ebony on, who manages the commissary up at the Saratoga Naval Support Facility there, talking about how our veterans can take advantage of those discounted groceries. Huge response to that. I had a lot of emails. I answered as best I could. Dom, I know I pointed a couple in your direction, and you said the phones were ringing.
Yeah, the phones were ringing. Thank you for everyone who shared, who watched Service and Sacrifice. I think personally I got 6 calls from that. The business office was just getting visitor after visitor, just issuing out veterans their Veterans Health ID cards. So thank you all so much for passing this information along.
And Emil, that was something you first brought to my attention actually a couple years ago when I actually visited the commissary with you.
And it's a wonderful place. It's a wonderful benefit for veterans. The real shame is that most veterans don't know about it. So we're going to do some outreach, and the commissary actually is going to try staffing a table for information down at the VA in the lobby.
Oh, excellent.
And they'll see it firsthand, understand it, and when they're explained it, they say, wow. That's how they like it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as we do at the end of the show, we answer a couple questions, and one of them has to do with a gentleman who's looking to take advantage of the commissary, and we will answer his question in short order. One of the other things I wanted to talk about at the top here, I came across a weekly schedule from the Albany County Veterans Services Bureau, and I was unaware of some of the things they offer on a weekly basis. There's lots to take advantage of here, Dom.
Oh, absolutely. So the director of the Albany County Veteran Services is Scott Leslie, and him and Albany County Executive Dan McCoy do a number of great events for the veterans in Albany County. One of those things is honoring deceased veterans. I know they do that every month. They also honor living veterans, and they do that, I believe, twice a year. But everything from, games, I call it game therapy. So everything from video gaming, free game, I think they do it in Manans, to just watching movies with other veterans and just congregating with veterans and talking to them. I know they do that at Cross Gates. To something that I need to get into, probably you should too, is hot yoga. So they do a hot yoga. I want to say it's like a retreat, but they do it twice a week.
I was hoping for a little reaction out of him, the hot yoga. He's very stone-faced still.
What's going on?
Hot yoga?
Try it out.
I'm going to admit one thing. I can't get off the floor, so I try not to do anything that requires
But Albany County Veterans Services does hot yoga twice a week. It's for the veterans and their spouse. So I think that's really good, especially when we get older. Things don't work. We're not as flexible as we used to be. So those are the things I think not only can you meet other veterans, but it really increases your health and it betters yourself. So I think Albany County is doing great things. I think they just also started getting with snowmobiling. So that's huge.
See that on the list here.
It is, the winter is just about over. So, but things to keep in the back of your brain for all those veterans listening. Again, the more veterans know, the stronger we grow. So let's just start sharing these hot topics.
No, and we thank Scott for sending this out, and we'll certainly have him in here at some point as well to talk more about what's happening with them, again, on a weekly basis, which is great to see. Emil, have you ever been snowmobiling?
Many years ago,
Yeah.
Motorcyclist when the season allowed, but wasn't a lover of the cold weather.
I know.
Arthritis.
And we just had that warm up this week, and now it's getting cold again.
Yeah.
But
Want to kick my meteorologist in the shins.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know, so until you try these different events.
Sure.
I've never tried yoga. I don't know if I like it or not, but it does sound
I
interesting.
haven't either. And the hot yoga, I don't know. They crank it up. Everybody's
And to be able to share that with other veterans around you, being comfortable, right? I know that's a big thing for veterans is they like to seclude themselves. But when you're around other veterans, it almost normalizes the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So to enjoy something new with, your brothers and sisters around you, can't beat that.
Lots to take advantage of. This is a very special week, too, here on Service and Sacrifice, because coming up next, We have two very special guests from downstate, a couple of Purple Heart recipients, talk about the Purple Heart Patriotic Project Mission, which they hold annually, and bring other Purple Heart recipients in from all around the country. They get a tour of the Hall of Honor, which is down just outside Newburgh. They bring them down to the city and they tour the 9/11 Museum. They wrap it all up with a big patriotic concert. Dan and Richie, we're going to be talking with them in just a few moments here on Service and Sacrifice, so stay right there on WTEN Plus. Welcome back, everybody, to Service and Sacrifice here on WTEN Plus. All right, we talked about it at the top of the show. We have two very special guests joining us today. I want to introduce you to Richie Lay, Dan Clarino, two Vietnam veterans, both recipients of the Purple Heart. Gentlemen, it is an honor to have you with us here this week. Welcome.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having us, Ryan.
So let's talk about, first of all, your service, gentlemen. How you got into the military. You're both Marines, both served in, we talked about earlier before we went on here, same area, Vietnam. Richie, talk to me about your service, how you got into the Marine Corps, how it all started for you.
Well, right after graduation from high school, I joined the New York City Police Department. And after a very, very short stint down there, I took a leave of absence and enlisted in the Marine Corps. I was exempt from the draft, but I felt it was my duty to serve. So off boot camp, infantry training, and right off to Vietnam.
Dan, how about you? Similar story?
Sort of similar. I joined the Marine Corps because in those days there was a pretty active draft, and I was probably eligible to be drafted, and I didn't want to be drafted into the Army. I wanted to be a Marine, so I volunteered to join the Marine Corps and joined in 1965. It was in Vietnam in 66.
Fairly early in the war. What was it like for both of you once you arrived in country there?
Well, it was eye-opening because you had been trained for going into a combat situation, but until you get there and you see the nuances of actual warfare, you wake up pretty quickly. And I think when you first get there, idealistically, you're going to stop communism where it is and all those things that we were told back then, and we're going to win the war. Once you get there, you start to think about self-preservation, and you start to think about your fellow Marine and try to make sure that you were doing whatever you could to help him and certainly perpetuate your own life. So self-preservation became very important.
Richie, would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree with that. I arrived in the beginning of the Tet Offensive in 1968. That was when the Vietnamese were going to just overrun the country and just take it over. It was going to be a one-shot deal. So I was up in the DMZ area for my first 6 months up there. Everything you learned in boot camp, everything you learned in your home life, it went right out the window the day of the landing. And I refer to it as the biggest camping trip I ever took in my life because we stayed out in the field for the first 6 months, kind of like living off the land, moving. And if you haven't figured it out, I'm from New York City. So there are no street lights. There are no numbered streets, et cetera, places you find out 50 years later, oh, I was there. But the chaos of what went on, but you only relied upon your training, your discipline, your camaraderie with your other teammates. It's all about the team. It's all about the company, the battalion, the platoon.
It was a much different time,
right,
with the draft in place. And I know if you take a look at some of the records of what percentage of the people that were in the service back then and what percentage were volunteers, that was a bit of a misnomer because many of the people that were volunteers only because they were under the specter of the draft. I was one of those because I knew I was going to be drafted and I didn't want to be drafted. So I joined the Marine Corps, and I did with 6 or 7 other young men from my town. In fact, they wrote us up. 7 people joined the Marine Corps. Now, technically, we were all volunteers, but we were volunteers because we were facing the draft.
Sure.
So if we had not joined and become volunteers, we would have become draftees. So either way, you wound up in a situation that.
You are both Purple Heart recipients. Richie, I heard you say in an interview once, it's not an award people want to receive.
Right.
But once you have it, you're awfully proud of it. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, you also, a lot of us, and I think Dan and I know each other for many, many years, it's not something you mention at a cocktail hour. You can't go in and say, guess what, I'm a Purple Heart recipient, especially to people during that, right after Vietnam. So for 30, 40 years, you just stayed behind the scenes. If somebody found it out, so be it. But I come to realize that Dan and I both, at this point, have stories to tell, and we are representing those that are on, in our case, on the Vietnam War, those 58,000. So we're representative of them. We have to carry on their legacy of the ultimate sacrifice.
You were injured how, Richie?
We walked into an ambush, a platoon-sized ambush. We were outside of a village. We went to go into the village the following day, but they had planted landmines as our entrance. But as we walked in, they started to drop mortar rounds, setting off the landmines. So we got it from the air and the ground. So 7 of us were wounded that day, and 2 ended up dying as a result of that.
Dan, what was your experience? I understand you were awarded 2 Purple Hearts. Can you talk to us about that?
He didn't get it right the first time.
I didn't learn the first time.
Yeah, so
I was wounded initially the first time on the 24th of July of 1966, Operation Hastings, and I had this shrapnel hit me right between my eyes. Very fortunate because it didn't hit my eyes. I bled pretty bad, but it wasn't as severe as it looked, but it was a combat injury. Less than a month later, I was shot by a sniper. I was a target of opportunity that day, and I was hit just below my navel, and the bullet passed right through my body and exited just out my back. And I'm very fortunate because the exit wound was right on my spine. So I could have very well been killed that day. Certainly I could have been paralyzed because the exit wound is right on my spine. Although it did a lot of internal damage, it didn't paralyze me. And I thank every day. You know, sometimes, Ryan, when I have a bad day and I think about something in my business or whatever that caused me some angst, I say, my goodness.
I survived being shot by a sniper.
60 years ago, my life could have been
Damn.
ended or dramatically changed. So I'm fortunate every day.
And now you are both part of this wonderful organization that helped create the National Purple Heart Hall of, Honor or Fame? Honor. Hall of Honor, just outside Newburgh. Right. Lots to talk about that and how you bring other fellow Purple Heart recipients to town a couple times a year?
No.
Once a year?
Once a year.
Once a year?
Yeah.
We're going to get much into that in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break here on Service and Sacrifice. See you on the other side. Welcome back to Service and Sacrifice, once again with Richard Lay, Dan Clarino, Vietnam veterans, both recipients of the Purple Heart. So we welcome you back here to our studio. Talk to me about, now the exact name, it's a long, the Purple Heart Mission?
The Purple Heart Honor Mission.
Honor Mission, thank you very much. And that is a nonprofit that established the Hall of Honor and continues to raise money for it. The hall itself actually falls under now the New York State Parks Department. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So talk to me about this annual event that you guys hold where you bring in people from around the country.
This is our fourth mission coming in, and this is very similar. People do get it confused. This is very similar to the Honor Flight, which took World War II veterans down to Washington. That's how it started. Ours is along the same line, except every recipient and their escort are Purple Heart recipients. Some of them are multiple Purple Heart recipients. So, and they come in here for we extended it this year to a week. We travel to various locations down in the city, to the Vietnam Memorial, Water Street, and then we take them to the Global War on Terrorism by the World Trade Center.
And they get to see West Point too, as well.
Yes, sir. They do.
Yeah.
Yes.
This year, there's 45 Purple Heart recipients and their families coming in at no cost to them. We fly them in and treat them as well as we do for the week. They're all chosen from their states. They're nominated from the different states, and then they represent the state that they are nominated from. And we mentioned before that I have a couple Purple Hearts. We have some veterans coming in this time that have 6 Purple Hearts.
Wow.
So it's amazing.
And not only that, but there's a concert that will wrap this all up too, correct? Some big patriotic concert that's put on there in Newburgh?
Yeah, not only in conjunction with what we're doing, but in conjunction with the 250th anniversary of the United States, we're having a concert at the local college, Mount St. Mary's. The Philharmonic will be there, and the ticket sales are pretty brisk, and we think it's going to be a great ending to a terrific program for our veterans. In fact, one of our board members, Mary Kay Messenger, is basically nationally known as a sergeant major, just retired from the military, but she sang with the West Point choir for all those years.
Beautiful.
So we're going to have one of our board members actually singing at the conference, and
it's not going to be us.
Richie or I. That's the good news.
Yeah, we're not doing a duet. That's the extent of
That's
our
the good news.
talking.
Now, the Purple Heart itself actually comes out of what was known as the Badge of Merit, Badge of Military Merit.
I can show that if you can hone in.
Yeah. Hold it right up to the camera. And that was created by none other than General George Washington.
Yes.
1782. He
in the Newburgh area, which is why the hall is located
At
there.
Washington's headquarters.
Right. It was first given to 3 sergeants and actually sewn on their uniform. And it kind of stayed dormant until 1932 when General MacArthur decided to create the modern Purple Heart based on the Badge of Military Merit. And
hold that up one more time, Dan, because under your finger there,
okay.
People can see the star on the ribbon, which Richie told me earlier signifies that this is your second.
Correct. That's correct.
Gentlemen, as we look back now, and it was an unpopular war at the time, and really, I think fair to say a national embarrassment when you all started to come home. What was that experience like for you?
We were told outright, just go back in, get on with your life. There was no transition period. The other thing, very unique to Vietnam veterans, if you think of World War II, you think of World War I, and even the Gulf War and Iraq and Afghanistan. Normally, they go over as a unit. You see them marching off to war as an entire unit. Vietnam was the first one that we went over as individual replacements. So we were kind of like locked into you're replacing, Joe Blow, who either was killed or went home. So that isolation, even when you came back, there was no esprit de corps, there was no marching bands, et cetera, et cetera. You should go home. Even the VA turned around and said, turn in your paperwork and go get on with your life. It wasn't until the 90s that the VA started to realize the mistake that they made. And they've rectified it.
We were kind of brief.
I almost forgot I had this photo. I just wanted to throw that up there so everybody could see it. Now that's Richie on the right,
Yes.
Dan on the left with your helmet on there.
That's me. Yep.
Yeah.
You
guys look exactly the same.
We were cautioned when we came back from Vietnam not to wear our uniforms in the airport. Because unfortunately, a good part of the population blamed the warrior for the war. And as I was mentioning before, there was a large percentage of the men and some women that were involved in the war that were drafted into it. So it wasn't they ran off to war because they wanted to see what war was about. The government says you have to go there.
Yeah.
And then when you came back home, you were treated as if
You started it.
You wanted it. So so it was a much different situation. I do think now, though, as we're all much older, I do think everyone is trying to make amends for that.
Yes.
And I think they bend over backwards, particularly for the Vietnam veteran, to welcome us home now when we weren't welcome before.
Right.
What do you hear from some of the younger veterans you've had a chance to interact with that maybe served in the first Gulf War or Afghanistan? What has their experience been like as opposed to
One of the things that they and I mentioned this to you earlier. One of the things they thanked us for. They thanked the Vietnam veterans for watching out for the way they were treated coming back, because we had a mantra going to the VA and fighting all these politicians, especially with Agent Orange. Turn around and say it's not going to happen again. And they would come up and say, "Yeah, if it wasn't for you old guys." I don't know where that came from, but
That's worse than going to the war.
That hurt the most. That we should have gotten a Purple Heart for. It goes right through your heart. But they were so appreciative, and that younger generation has the utmost respect for us. And plus the fact they'll turn around and say, "You got a raw deal on this." These are young kids that are 20 years. Can I just tell you the story at the last mission? We had a guy from out of state, and we took him down to
9/11
the 9/11 memorial, and what we're doing is we're watching them to see what their reaction is going to be, and of course Dan and I can go in and speak to them as the Purple Heart recipients. So there's one gentleman, Dan saw it first. Dan went over and spoke to him. His wife was there, and then when Dan walked away, Dan and I never spoke. I walked up and I said to him, take it easy, so on and so forth. That was the anniversary of the end of the Iraq and Afghanistan war. And what he said to us was, he said the same thing to us because we conferred later on. He said, "I feel so guilty that it just abruptly ended." And the both comments, unrehearsed, was, "This has nothing to do with you. You served with honor." Politicians that got involved in that made that decision for you, but you can't carry it. You served with distinction and honor. And like I said, we didn't even rehearse it. We didn't even know what was said. We were distanced apart.
He was quite overwhelmed with the whole
he was.
process.
And his wife, the following morning, she was leaving. She said, "Thank you very much." He was up all night, and he was actually, they were catching a flight back out. He actually started to talk to me, because of you two old guys.
again with the old guys?
Again with the old guys.
Jeez.
Well, the experience.
Yeah.
Audie Murphy, who was highly decorated World War II veteran, became an actor.
Yeah.
Once said, "No one ever survives a war, even if they come home." And that's true, because if you've been there, you have certain scars, even if they're not visible.
Right.
Well, listen, gentlemen, I could talk to you all day. I hope you come back. We thank you for your service. We thank you for being here. The latest mission's coming up the end of April.
Yes, sir.
Hoping I can get down at least for a part of that.
For the
concert
concert, for
would
sure.
be
Concert,
wonderful.
right?
Dan, Richie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
You're watching Service and Sacrifice. We're back after a quick break. Welcome back to Service and Sacrifice. First of all, how cool were Richie and Dan? That was phenomenal to have them both in here, and I know you two had a chance to speak with them as they were leaving.
I mean, how can you not love Marines, right? 2 U.S. Marines. America loves their Marines. I don't know about you, Emil.
Well, fellow Vietnam veterans
There
mean a
you
lot
go.
to me, and we talked about topics that we had mutual conversation easily about We're like all brothers when we're there.
Absolutely.
Love that. And I really hope I can get down to the big concert coming up on April 30th, wrapping up that mission where they bring everybody in from around the country. All right, here's where we answer your questions, okay? Paul Blickfeld. Paul, you emailed me and asked how I can get you information about you're looking for a new VA representative. Dom, what's he dealing with here?
Okay, so there's 3 different ways to deal with this, Paul. So one is you could do it yourself, right? You could do it yourself. You submit your claim through VBA. That's the first. I don't recommend this specifically if you're a first time looking to make a service claim. Second thing you can do, which is what I recommend, is find a Veteran Service Connection officer. So these can come from the county, like Scott Leslie, we talked in the first segment there. You could do a county rep. You can do a state rep, or you could find an organizational rep. Now, these reps, what they'll do is you'll tell them what your claim is, what you want to put a claim for. They'll process all the paperwork for you. They'll make some recommendations. They'll tell you what to do, what not to do. They'll submit. But the big thing, like we said, I believe in last week's segment, is the intent to file. Make sure you get that intent to file. But if you want to switch out service VA representatives, that is the way to do it. If you have any more questions, Paul, please send it through. And as always, Emil, do you have anything to add to that?
Just the intent to file itself. You can submit it yourself, or you can call the 800 number to the VA, and they will put it in there for you. And the importance of that is if it's done today, you file a claim, you will be paid back to today because that filing is done. If you just file a claim and it goes in there and it takes 40 days or longer to be approved, you're going to start getting paid the day it's approved. So make sure the intent to file is there. You don't have to do it. You can call and have it done for you at the 800.
Good to know.
And Paul, just another thing, if you're listening, Paul, come to the VA Medical Center. And everyone listening, the VA Medical Center in Albany has Service Connection officers. They're located on the 6th floor of the VA, and they're happy to represent you, to help you, or any questions and claims that you want to push in.
Get there, take advantage, make it happen. All right, we have a second question this week, and this relates kind of back to the commissary story that we were talking about last week. A gentleman was reaching out, asking how he could take advantage of getting into the commissary and saving that money. I gave him some information about having even just a 0% rated disability, and you get the service-connected little badge there on your health ID card. He says he's not eligible for that VHID due to the financial requirement as per his VA rep. And this is Arthur Dutcher is writing in with this.
All right, I think I may actually know Arthur Dutcher. So Art, this is a common theme that we see is the means test, right? What is a means test? The means test is financial disclosures. So the VA says if you make over $41,000, you're not eligible to be a patient there. If you make under $41,000, then you are eligible. But here's the kicker: whether you're over or you're under, you're still eligible for a Veterans Health ID card. You're still eligible for services. It just means you may have a copay. Regardless, Art, the one thing I recommend is what we just talked about is a service connection, because once you have a service connection, even though you're 0%, you're automatically a patient at the VA Medical Center, or you complete the enrollment process and you'll get your ID card. Again, come to the VA Medical Center in Albany, reach out to Dom Dominguez or my business office staff, and I'm happy to walk you through this process, Art.
Well, one of the things, you're eligible for the VA healthcare card. However, to look at it from the angle of shopping at the commissary, you have to be service connected with a disability to shop there. And that's typed right under your picture, and that's added in there. So you have to have even a 0 disability that pays you no compensation, and it has to be noted on there. The commissary is not an option.
But I believe Art's question was he wants an ID card.
Right.
Which we can absolutely
Yes.
issue him that
Perfect.
ID card.
You know, Emma, one thing before we wrap up here for the day, for the week here, the first time I did that commissary story, I think I asked you about a veteran who may have difficulty getting, say they're in Albany or somewhere, getting all the way up to Saratoga Springs, and whether or not there's any CDTA transportation available, any kind of way that can help them get there a little easier.
Well, the naval base or the commissary doesn't furnish that.
Right.
However, the county veteran offices all have mobility. They'd have to schedule them. I'm not sure what they do as far as going to places like that. but they're noted for bringing veterans to numerous places. They can always have a friend or relative bring them. The friend or relative can't purchase, but the veteran can with the ID card. So right now that base is open to even civilians.
Another topic of discussion, transportation for our veterans, help to get them from place to place. We're going to talk about that 1 week here for sure. Gentlemen, as always, thank you very much. That's going to do it for another week here on Service and Sacrifice. Hey, if you're watching us, great. If you don't know where to see us, tell your friends. WTN Plus is our new streaming platform. You have to be on Roku, Apple TV, or Amazon Fire. You go to the App Store on either one of those platforms. You download the app for free. You get all our newscasts plus all this original content, like Service and Sacrifice. But we also post these episodes to our YouTube channel as well, WTEN there. We'll see you next week.